The world of professional wrestling is one of the most amazing environments when it comes to sports and entertainment. The history of this industry spans for around 100 years, but almost in the last 30 years the people started to peek behind the curtain and to know what this industry is about and the stories that molded the product that we know today. With its good and bad stories, the world of professional wrestling still awakens interest, not only in the minds of people who just discovered this product, this sport, but also for the ones who know details and histories regarding certain moments or certain wrestlers from different periods of time. And when the stories are presented in a film, the interest is greater because the fans of this sport are extremely, how can I put it nicely, dedicated, and every wrong detail is gonna be exploited and attacked by those fans, and brutally. The Iron Claw is a 2023 biopic film which takes the viewer in the world of professional wrestling from the late 1970s and 1980s and focuses on the story of the Von Erich brothers, who were an important and influential family of the business, who were seen as prodigies. The film focuses on the tragic ending of some of the brothers due to different causes created by the world of professional wrestling and the effects those deaths have on the only brother who survives. Now, I will not enter in details regarding the history of the Von Erichs. The story was and can be told perfectly by wrestling personalities along the years who knew the brothers and lived those times, like Jim Cornette, Bret Hart, Roddy Piper, and even Kevin Von Erich. And their words can be found out there on the internet, telling everything as they experienced. I will try to focus on the film alone and talk about it as much as I possibly can as a fictional story. But I have to say this from the beginning. This film truly came close to my feelings in a way I did not expect. What exactly means dedication? What does it mean when someone tries to follow a parent's footsteps? What is happening when a family is competing with each other in professional life? Those are just simple questions that could be raised by anyone during its life. But those are the questions that could be seen written all over in this movie. The story of the Iron Claw follows the experiences of Kevin Von Erich, his life and his professional wrestling career. The film presents details about how he started his career, how he found the love of his life, but also presents the stories of his brothers, Kerry, David and Mike, of how they started to enter in the wrestling business, but also their sad ending and the effect those endings had on Kevin and the rest of his family. The story of the film presents clearly for the viewer each of the brothers' motivations of why they became wrestlers, and the way it is presented kinda gives a premise for the way each character's story is gonna end. For example, Kevin became a wrestler because he wanted to help his family, to work in the business, to have his family together and to protect them. Kerry kinda didn't have a choice after the boycott of the United States regarding the Olympics in 1980, so in a way he wasn't entirely happy, thus probably the outcome with the motorcycle accident and the rest of his story. He didn't find his place. As for David and Mike, they were forced in a way to do wrestling by their father. Mike wanted to do music, so his goal wasn't at all wrestling. David was there just to support his brother, but due to his mic skills, David was pushed into the wrestling business, and it was given the opportunities faster than Kevin initially started to earn them. It is sad in a way to present those characters as persons who were pushed into this world by context and family, and then to end their story in a very tragic way. This thing takes me to the idea of who the villain of the film is, because even though it is a moral villain, he is the one who can be held responsible for all the problems, and the film presents this idea that Fritz, father of the Von Erichs, is the one who can be considered that moral villain. For the entirety of the film, Fritz is presented as this father who is a businessman but who takes quite a lot of interest into making one of his sons world champion. It's like his career, his fight for the title, a title that he didn't won when he was a wrestler, is not over and forces his son to do good in order to win that title, a thing that could be seen as pressure. Each and every single brother tried to make their father proud, and they succeeded. But apparently, Fritz wasn't satisfied, he wanted more from them, to be the best. There is this scene in the film right after David's funeral where Kerry and Kevin talk with their father regarding who is gonna fight for the title, and Fritz leaves everything in the hands of fate by flipping a coin. That scene to me in that moment is quite definitory for him. He doesn't care who fights for the title, just to fight and win the title. The way it is presented, it is quite heavy. There is another thing that makes this whole thing being more disturbing, in a way. Both Fritz and his wife Doris, they don't want to interfere in their son's problems, they do not want to support them, they just leave them to deal with their issues on their own and together. When this idea was presented at the beginning of the film, it was like a decision of Doris to not interfere into the discussion between Mike and his father, which is in a way okay, I think. It looked like a decision to not interfere in a fight between a father and his son. But when the idea is presented at the end of the film, when Carrie truly needs help and Kevin asks his father to help him, and his father doesn't do that, and then Carrie dies by the same gun he gifted to his father, that moment hits the viewer quite hard. In that moment, all of the rage and pain lashes out and Kevin attacks his father, blaming him for all the bad luck this family had in the last years. The story of Kevin is also tragic because he is a witness to all those problems, and he sees how he loses his family step by step, blaming the curse of the name Von Erich for everything, but a balance is created and he starts to find love, starts to create his own family, and starts to protect them by anything bad, even the curse, with extreme ideas by not going home, or by small details in which he names his firstborn by his birth name and not the name Von Erich. And the ending of the film is so heart-melting. The scene in which Kevin spends time with his sons right after he lost all of his brothers and his sons are comforting him, that scene gives Kevin hope to continue and to protect his new family. It is an obvious change but understandable on many levels. It is a tearful moment for the film, but it is a natural one. His dream was to protect his family, and his dream didn't die with his brothers. It was just altered a bit. Being a biopic, the film presents a real-life story in an altered way, presenting some elements that might be, let's say, romanticized for the sake of the film's story. For those who know the original story, they will realize there are some obvious changes. For example, in reality, there were 5 Von Erich brothers who started in the wrestling business, not 4. Why the last brother, Chris, was left out of the film was decided by the director, Sean Durkin, in order to keep the story more tight and more focused, in order for the movie to be made, apparently, which is understandable, I think. After all, a biopic is meant to ignite interest for the original story, so in my opinion, I think it is doing this thing quite perfectly. True, the audience of the film is made more from wrestling fans, but it has the same purpose as for a new viewer after all. The way the film presents the story, it is true it is felt a bit rushed due to the time constraints of the runtime of the movie, and the whole tragedy, it looks like, is coming right one after another, which from a narrative perspective it is quite intriguing and important for the evolution of the characters. If you know the history of professional wrestling, you kinda know where to place the moments from the film, but for the story of the film, even for the evolution of Kevin, the way it is presented, it is made perfectly. The film does not take time to explain the moments and to give you an introduction of the context. It just presents the moment and makes the viewer get the information along the way. Of course, the film presents to you in what year certain moments of the film is happening, and as a viewer you understand when the story takes place, but even if you know when it is happening, if you are not a wrestling fan, the time might be just a small piece of information that places the story just in a certain time, making the viewer take the information as it is. I like that the film takes its time to present from time to time the story of the other brothers, and to not focus solely on Kevin. Presenting their moments of the story makes the effect of the passing more important for the viewer. It's like in those moments, the viewer becomes Kevin for a moment. It gets to know them better, and by the time something is happening, you kinda are there with the family in their grief. From the perspective of a biopic film, the Iron Claw is presented beautifully, and it truly respects the world of professional wrestling in an honorable way. There are moments when the film presents the idea that the matches are predetermined, but most of the time, the film presents the world of wrestling with respect, with honor, like any other competitive sport. As for the title of the film, which presents the name of the Von Erich finisher move, I find it properly adequate, not because of the legacy of the move, but for the way the brothers are trapped in this world, in which they entered, some of them by choice, some of them by force. It is my theory, but yes, I think this film truly ignites the curiosity of the viewer to find out more about the context and the real-life characters. It is a sad story and it has a theme and a metaphor behind the title and the characters, but after all, It presents the viewer a world in a unique way and in a way that it can be seen and understood by anyone, whether if the viewer knows about wrestling and some of its history, or if the viewer is watching something new that has never seen before. From the first moments I started to watch the film, I was in awe when I saw the actors' performances. The way they portrayed their characters was incredible in my opinion, and the story was built in a way to allow the actors to evolve their performances to a level that can be remembered. The way Zac Efron portrays Kevin is quite innocent and pure, and you truly feel the character's innocence and pain throughout the story. Another character was Carrie, who had an incredible evolution, and you felt the way he started to destroy himself step by step. Jeremy Allen White did an amazing job presenting the character in the most direct and emotional way, to see a character who is not well in the thing he does and who suffers a lot through everything, hiding it from everyone. All of the actors who appear in the film presented the characters amazingly, and you understand each and every single one of them uniquely, but I wanted to talk about Zac and Jeremy specifically because I wasn't a fan of their work. I appreciated them, but something didn't connect with me until this film, where in my opinion they were the main pillars of the story. With their performance here, they caught my eye and I start to appreciate their work even more now. There is also an artistic feeling in the way the story is written and the way the film presents surreal moments. There is a moment when Doris is watching the wrestling match Carrie is having, the match that was supposed to be David's, and Durkin makes sure to show the viewer how David's presence is felt by Doris in that moment. That moment is quite impactful. It is not as impactful as the scene at the end of the film where David, Carrie and Mike are meeting again in the afterlife together with their big brother who passed long ago, in the same place that was presented at the beginning of the film, that is a place in which the brothers are having fun. Those moments are incredibly well, giving the pinnacle of emotions to the viewer. Durkin knew how to point out certain moments quite well, and the actors' performances are helping those moments in a very beautiful way. You truly feel their emotions, their reactions, the moments, and even if you feel that pain and loss the characters feel, I think you can say the film won your heart. If we are gonna talk about how the film is made, the image and the way it is edited, there is something that I quite like straightforward from the first moments of the film. The film is shot in a way to give the sensation that it's like a low-budget film, but it is filmed quite beautifully and elegantly. By low budget, I don't mean the film is made in a cheap way with a very bad quality and bad elements in its production. I mean, it is a film with limited budget, filmed uniquely, smart and quite ingenious. It gives a certain vibe of the cinematic style of the 1970s in a way. It takes its time to present moments in an emotional way. It makes you get closer to the characters through some shots and makes you feel certain emotions alongside them. Durkin made the shots of the film so well that sometimes you forget about the film being 2 hours long. The parts that are presenting the wrestling matches, however, I like they copied the camera angle that was used back in the day to record the wrestling matches, that angle from far away that shows the whole arena. During the wrestling matches, Durkin combines the classic style of wrestling angle camera shot with the cinematic and modern angles to create a dynamic style of storytelling. Another thing that I appreciate about Durkin's style is the way he recreated the promo moment with Harley Race in order to create a great level of continuity, to not create a weird feeling of discontinuity between the way Harley looks in the ring or in the promo. The same thing happened also regarding the film moments with Ric Flair, but I have to say as a personal note that I felt more authentic the moments with Harley Race than the moments with Flair. Probably I am more accustomed with Flair in real life and expected something else, seeing him how he acts and all of his characteristic moments he had along the years, but as I said, this is just me. Both of the characters were presented perfectly and as accurate as possible. And for the distant shots of the television shows, I like he used real life footage of wrestling shows that were from the days of the time the story takes place. That way, for the ones who know the wrestling world, it is not only a beautiful Easter egg, but also as a hint as to when the story moments take place. As for the way Durkin used sound in the film, I like that the music is not used prominently in the film to help certain scenes in order to give a vibe of those certain moments. There are shots that are helped by music that truly make the viewer feel happy or sad, but those moments are not used too much. The vibe of the film is given by the rhythm of the film and the reactions of the characters, and the music gives the sensation that is used just to be used, but even so, the way Durkin used this element of filmmaking is well done and not too much, which makes the effect be more impactful in those certain scenes than usual. So from a cinematographic point of view, this film is made simple yet beautifully. It has a nice touch to the world it represents. It is made in a way to make the viewer feel the emotion, and having the time to focus on their characters truly makes you as a viewer to feel what you have to feel at certain moments in time. When The Iron Claw was released, I really wanted to see it in cinema, but I didn't have a chance. I think it was not released in my region, that's why, but I got the chance to see it now and I wasn't disappointed. I am a wrestling nerd myself, not an extreme one though, so yeah, I really wanted to see the movie mostly because of that. But seeing the film, I truly appreciate its effort. It is a beautiful film. For a wrestling fan, as I said, it is a story that has to be seen, and having all those school classical moments makes the movie nostalgic in a way, for an era that now I think it's called the golden era of professional wrestling. For a normal viewer, this film might be a casual normal film regarding some brothers who did the sport a long time ago. In my opinion, I think it does not matter whether you are a wrestling fan or not. The film has a certain element that gets you interested. Whether you might see this film because you're a fan of a certain actor, or a wrestling fan, or just a fan of movies in general, The Iron Claw is one of those movies that tells you a real-life inspired story in a way that is not way too hard to understand or too blank to be told. The film presents the whole moment in an equal way for its viewers and is made in a clear and understandable style. You do not need too much information regarding the certain world it represents. It does not need to present certain details that explains the context. It just goes with the flow of the story and the viewer understands it quite well. At the beginning of the video, I said that the film hits quite close to my feelings in ways that I did not imagine. The dedication of Kevin, the desire to help his family, the unspoken pressure of a parent, made this film to be experienced in a way that might feel similar to some of the viewers' experiences. I felt a certain personal emotion in certain moments of the film, and I started to feel a huge amount of empathy for the main character and his story. Durkin did something amazing with this film regarding how to present a certain feeling to the viewer, a feeling that was felt by anyone in a certain moment of their life. Sometimes, the film does not reflect the idea of being inspired from a real-life story. It feels like it tells the story directly from the real life, without being presented as a biopic film. But this is just a personal take on the film. To conclude the idea of this video, even though I repeat myself, the concept of the biopic is to present a real-life inspired story in a unique way. Most of the time, the audience of a biopic is mainly the one who knows about the event or the character, but the movie is also made for new audiences to gain interest, for the new viewers to start to know and to explore the real-life story. The Iron Claw does that in a good way. It is a film worth watching. Due to its cinematic style, The Iron Claw might be a breath of fresh air for some viewers who are fans of biopics compared to other movies, but only time will tell. To me, it's a great film, and it's worth the wait to watch it.